Vanessa, thank you very much for joining me on the show. One cornerstone of the way that you think about work and life is leadership is very important to you, right?
Absolutely.
And yeah, you've been around in a few different kinds of organizations. And I'd like to ask you, so what have you learned over the years on how crucial leadership is, especially in the position that you're in now?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's more important than ever, I think, especially in this age of Zoom and remote work, right? It's really important that our teams feel connected. They feel empowered. They're able to feel like they have a voice and like a safe space to bubble up ideas or challenges. And what's interesting in this kind of senior director VP level is you have a foot on both sides. You have a seat at the executive table and eye into some of the strategy, but you're also, especially at a size company like Nativo, very much hands-on with the doers on your team. So, kind of empowering them and leading them, but then also finding space for your own growth and your own leadership and being able to bridge the gap between the doing and the strategy. That's where it's really important that you have a strong leader and somebody, again, that you're comfortable poking holes and speaking up and bringing ideas to the table.
And how often would you say then you're in that position where you're talking to let's say people that are on the board level or on a higher management level? Is there a very distinct split between, okay, I'm going to have 20% of my time talking to that group of people and I'm going to have 40% of my time talking to other teams? Or is it not so clear cut?
Not so clear at all. Especially again in my role, I report directly to the CEO. So I am it's a double-edged sword. I'm very lucky that I have direct access to a C-level person day to day. I realize there's not many people across my organization that interact with him, and he's brilliant and really wonderful. But then at the same time, he's very much in the weeds of a lot of things that are going on. And his brain is working in a different way. He's seeing different things about the business. So again, that's really where the challenge for me is finding the balance and being able to translate between the two worlds.
Right. And what are you excited about for, going forward? Because we've had a lot of changes over the last couple of years. So saying we work more remotely, you guys work in the office 1 day a week. Do you think there's any trends out there that things are going to dramatically shift?
I don't know about a dramatic shift, but there's certainly this trend towards more connection. I think more so now than ever, people understand that the value of being together can't be replicated or replaced. We have all of these wonderful tools that help us work remotely, and there's so much upside to that, being able to be around for your kids, be more present, or find that balance, which I'd argue is a whole other podcast to talk about. There's no such thing as work-life balance.
Yeah.
But the need for human connection and that small talk around coffee or we're in New York City, so a walk around the block to grab your lunch, like those moments are what are so valuable and really remind you that you're part of this bigger thing, you're part of this larger organization.
You think though the company's going to really push people to go back into the office more and more and more? Or do you think it's gone?
I think it depends on the industry that you're in. I know there's certain, like the JP Morgans of the world are really being strict about it. I think in the ad tech space, less so. I think there's definitely a balance between understanding the value of connection, but then understanding that there's a lot of value in the workforce across the globe. And when you're requiring people to come into an office, you're cutting your pool of talent by a huge percent. So,
Right.
Somebody in Texas can do the same job. It just might be a bigger investment because you have to get them to New York every once in a while to see the team. But finding the balance there, I think, is really important as well.
Yeah, yeah. I've definitely had some shifts where some organizations have been acquired, right? So lots of acquisitions going on. Some companies not done so well. They've been acquired. The team have taken over effectively. And then they say, right, you've got to come in the office. And some guys have gone, well, I live in Spain, so going to New York would be quite a challenge. And they said, if you can pay for it and raise my salary that I can live in New York, then I'll go ahead and do it. And they were like, no, we can't do that. And he's like, okay, well, I'll see you later.
Right.
And that's how he can lose talent, right?
Absolutely.
So let's talk about the experiential side of things, right? So human connections more important than ever, would you say? So what have you been doing from, company promotion sense, from a B2B sense, with regards to, let's say improving human contact and improving customer experience?
Yeah, I think in the past there had, especially post-COVID, there was this push to be at all of the industry tentpoles. You have to be at CES, you have to be at DMXCO, you have to be in Cannes, and all of these huge industry events, right? Thousands of people, get the lists, go out there and meet everybody. What I've seen in the past 2 years has really been this shift to those are great and they have their value and they have their time and place, but what's more important are those advisory board dinners, are those one-to-one experiences where we're curating an outing for a team, whether it's through a charity event or an activity, something, a sports game, somewhere where you're getting that time to one-on-one connect with people. When you're able
Yeah.
to bond over something and learn about somebody's kids and what's going on behind their Zoom background or just who they are truly as people, that's where the magic happens. And those conversations are less likely to happen, in the middle of Advertising Week, New York, when you're in passing or at the Chandelier Bar in CES, lots of noise and distraction. Those things are happening behind closed doors, these curated dinners with topics, giving our clients like an opportunity to talk about what really matters to them. And so we found that's really moving the needle at this point.
But do you still need to be there at those big events? That's the question.
That is the question. And we're going back and forth around that. A lot of asking them to bring back a lot of data so we can look at it analytically. But I will say I've been doing this long enough that so much of the events is based on, it's harder to track. It's one of those less tangible things. I heard Judy Lee from Pinterest say once that the tent poles are just that, right? Tent poles, and those more curated touch points that happen in between is the fabric of the tents that get us from tent pole to tent pole. So our argument is you need to be there. You need to be in the mix. Sometimes that's where you have access to the higher level executives that are eventually making the decisions. But in order to get those meetings with those higher level people, you need to have the relationships that are made at the dinner table between the tent poles.
Yeah, that's a really, really good analogy. I like the way that they put that together. For me, it's a challenge because I've been on so many of those big events. You mentioned Cannes, you mentioned DMXCO as well. Been to DMXCO, I think about 6 or 7 times.
Yeah.
And I always come away with mixed feelings. I'm like, was it worth it? Did I enjoy it? Did I make new connections? I certainly bumped into old friends and colleagues and people, and it was sometimes good fun. There were some good parties and good networking moments.
Yeah.
But sometimes I felt like come away and I'm like, not really sure about that. Whereas some companies would say, well, we need to invest in a stand and we just need to be there. We just need to be visual. Whereas I am actually in agreement with you. So more recently, with other projects, I've seen doing networking dinners, right? You called it like a CEO dinner or a CMO dinner or something similar. That's where the real value happens. That's where you make that really good big bond and connection.
100%.
And it's, yeah.
I was going to say,
do you think it's more important now in the current market, or do you think it's just we're going to go that way anyway?
Both. I think right now people want to be heard, especially in the ad tech space. There's so much, merging, and just things are shifting on the agency side, which means dollars are shifting, roles are shifting. Some of the older, there's presidents of huge companies resigning left and right every day. Things are changing. And so it's really important to keep a pulse on that. Not everything's coming out in the news, and it's behind those closed doors at those curated dinners that you're hearing about these things.
And what's your take on video content? Do you think that's more prevalent now in B2B than ever before, or do you think it's a steady stream?
It's a huge growth opportunity across the board. The companies who are already doing it are a step ahead. The companies who aren't doing it, it's now or never. You better get brushed up on your AI skills and plug that rocket ship in and get going. I think from a content standpoint, it's more important than ever. We know that's how people are just digesting and getting information. From a business standpoint, that's what brands want. That's what they're producing. That's what they're investing in. So being able to take those assets, use those assets, leverage those assets for them only makes you a more valuable partner.
We're doing it right now, right? We're doing video.
Here we are.
I mean, this is like proof in the pudding.
Exactly.
As we say.
Future Fuzz is sponsored by SalesSource, B2B pipeline management and sales growth for your business.
I'm certainly excited to see, especially on a B2B sense, I'm certainly excited to see where it's going to go with platforms like especially Meta, because I'm seeing that there'll be companies out there that are promoting and they're trying to reach their B2B decision maker, but knowing that they'll be on Meta. I'm seeing more and more B2B content on these platforms. I'm not just seeing it on LinkedIn.
Oh,
Are you
100%.
seeing any other places? Are you seeing anything else?
Absolutely. I see it on CTV, right? I'm watching a show on Hulu with my husband and a ad for Salesforce comes up, you know?
Right. And was that targeted to you because you're streaming that, right? You're not watching that on standard TV.
Oh, correct. Yeah, I'm streaming it and it's my login. So it's connected to all of my information here. I've also seen a CTV ad for the trade desk, right? That's obviously a huge company, but that's not an ad for everybody, but they found me in my house after hours, just trying to unwind and watch some TV. So it's here, it's happening.
Yeah, love it. I get YouTube, like I'm getting hit all over the place on YouTube for financial software. We changed some systems recently, right? It's like, oh, look, like QuickBooks. I'm like,
there's a lot of fintech happening too. Yeah, I see Ramp a lot, and even some of the HR software. I've seen some ads around Rippling, things like that. And, it makes sense if you can get, even if I'm not an HR professional, but I do have a voice and I communicate with the people team here and they ask me my opinion. And if I have some brand affinity or recognize something, I'm able to make a recommendation or say, oh, I recognize that. I mean, marketing, it works, right?
and it's about touch points, isn't it? It's about basically staying top of mind.
That's it.
You racked off the brands there because you remembered seeing those videos and they're top of mind always.
Exactly.
You, right?
Exactly.
Let's crack on to talk about the mid-funnel challenge. So this is an area you've got a lot of experience too. So why do you think it is that the mid-funnel journey gets often overlooked? What's happening there?
I think there's a lot of pressure when it comes to the brand and agency side for certain performance metrics, right? They need to address the top of the funnel or, with that blanket awareness, or there's more pressure for that bottom of the funnel, conversions. What the missing piece is the middle. So what happens from the first exposure to a conversion is this connection in the middle. There's this brand affinity that we're talking about. There's this education, this identifying with the brand, understanding that, especially in this day and age, right, there's all sorts of causes and stories behind brands, and you end up liking a certain brand, maybe less because of the product, but more because of what they stand for or how they were built or how they got there. And that is learned in the middle of the funnel. That's where this content driven advertising or some of this more kind of native advertising really helps brands build the connection and get them from discovery to conversion.
And why do you think that they get so obsessed with top of funnel? Because they think it's a numbers game? What is that all about?
Yeah, I think, it gets complicated when teams are responsible for delivering a certain number of, if success comes down to black and white and KPIs and numbers on a page, sometimes you need to do the things that maybe are less impactful in the real world, but on paper and in terms of clicks or opens or viewability, those are the tactics that are getting those numbers and making your bosses happy. At the end of the day, it's still just a bunch of people trying to keep their jobs that are making these decisions. So it's really important for those partners that work with companies like Nativo on the agency side to be able to see that you can get and you can hit your KPIs even stronger when you lean into a solution in the mid funnel. It's not just about those top of the funnel metrics.
And in the network that Nativo's got, I understand that there's around 7,000 premium publishers in the network. Are they all very carefully screened effectively?
And growing. Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that our business was built on from the beginning, which everyone is talking about now, but this is kind of how we've operated since the inception, is this idea of a clean supply. So we don't do any reselling. We know all of our publishers, all of our placements, it's done on a direct basis, which really allows us to confidently call our ads brand safe and make sure that our ads and our brands are being placed in environments that they want to be in.
And how do publishers get through? I mean, do they have to go through some sort of rigorous checking, or is there some? Yeah,
we have a fully dedicated publisher team, as well as a kind of SaaS platform where publishers are able to use our technology to deliver our very unique technology that allows for this content-driven ad. But yeah, there's absolutely rigor around how and who is accepted into our network for sure.
Yeah, because I've got lots of experience from the good old days. Like, I mean, maybe I'm showing my age a little bit now, but I was doing mobile marketing when it was J2ME.
Yeah.
You know, the iPhone wasn't even out yet.
Yes.
what it was, but like hardly anyone had one.
Right. Yes.
And then the cowboy world of publishers was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we were seeing like $200,000 budgets spent on like just absolute crap.
Yeah.
And I think that has been quite damaging for the industry long term.
Absolutely.
About that.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about that kind of loomscape of how the industry works and is put together and plugged in with each other, that's where Nativo's story about brand safety and kind of this clean supply is more important than ever. To your point, the industry was just polluted with resellers and resellers on top of that. How much of your budget was actually being spent on the ad and how much was actually being dropped off between each jump point? So
resellers on top of resellers, it was like a waterfall effect. I mean, I'm quite sure some of the guys back then were building some technology to take advantage of that.
Yes, for sure.
What are your predictions for what's coming in the future in terms of content marketing? So from your perspective, do you think there's anything that's going to be really stand out in the future?
I think we'll definitely continue to see the rise and takeover of video. I think CTV obviously is here and is not going anywhere. I do think that there's an interesting opportunity for kind of the digital out-of-home space and the in-person experiences, right? So those kind of old school or more traditional, right? The bus stops, the train stops, the airplanes, airports, right? So all of that out-of-home stuff, because people are looking for that connection of where they are as humans. I do think there's an interesting opportunity at play there.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I think especially now there's more digital out of home available than there has ever been before. There's options there.
I was walking through the city the other day and Outfront Media was there, like putting up new digital billboards right on 31st Street. You come out of the brand new Penn Station, there's a slew of brand new digital ads, billboards, and it's actually entertaining to wait on the street corner for the red light to change now. There's just a constant stream of very creative advertising happening all around.
That's cool. And it stops people making that they look at their phone all the time, right?
Yes.
People are not looking at all their phone all the time, walking around like zombies.
Yes, exactly.
I do definitely feel that there is a trend that people will be actually consciously trying to look at their phone less.
100%. 100%. Yeah.
I mean, I think the kids of today, like my kids, your kids graduating from kindergarten, I have a funny feeling that they will consume way less than we do now.
I was absolutely going to say that. I think as our generation starts to have children and I have a 14-month-old as well, and he knows how to swipe up and navigate around that phone, and it's scary. And I agree. I do think that there's a pressure on us to make sure that they don't become zombies and that they do appreciate the power of privacy. Actually, what's interesting is the other day I was reading something about Generation Alpha, and that the death of the birthday Facebook post, right? So for the past however many years, if it was your friend or your cousin or your whoever's birthday, you had to post a montage of pictures from all of your experiences throughout the last year. And if you didn't do it, it was big trouble. Well, this young generation now, that's gone. And the birthday post that you post is if you're at the dinner table, because if you are the one sitting down watching me blow out my cake, you're the real one and you're the one there celebrating with me. So there is this mindset of being in the moment, which makes me very, very happy. That pressure to post that birthday post every year and find new pictures is a lot. And the idea behind actually being there and actually celebrating in person is a beautiful one. So I was happy to see that.
That's really, really cool. And I'm with you on that. They will value more the human engagement than I believe, let's say, some of the young millennials and Gen Z
Yes, for
are
sure.
valuing now.
Yeah,
And I don't know if you've ever heard about that book called The Anxious Generation.
I have. I haven't read it.
Good.
No, I need to. I have a couple of friends who have said, do not wait, read this book now. But
Yeah, I think especially, so you and I will have a marketing background, right? So we know how it works. We come from the digital space, and reading that book, it really impacts you, especially when you've got kids as well, because you're like, oh, wow. Yeah, that's how it works.
yeah,
So yeah, I highly recommend it, but it just exactly what you have said, like that you're there in person, you're at the party, you're helping blow out the candles on the cake.
exactly.
That human connection is so crazily important. And they've actually seen a trend that babies that like watch too much TV or something from a very young age, they have a disconnect with their parents because they can't measure emotional cues as well
Yes.
because they were always watching TV, right?
Ugh. It's another thing that you'd like to be able to find a balance, because every now and then you need to put Bluey on or Miss Rachel so you can do the thing. But then also, as a human, like we work all day, we're on Zoom all day, and you're tired, you want to sit on the couch and just like decompress for a second. But we have to be there for our kids. We have to share the emotional intelligence with them. I agree. So the way I think about it is everything is a season. Eventually my kids won't want to be spending time with me. So I'm going to lean in now while they do. So
Yeah, right. Well, we're not all going to go back living in wooden huts and caves or whatever. So you're allowed to put Bluey on occasionally. Yeah. I do too. But it was like talking about the extremes.
yes.
Awesome. Vanessa, it has been an absolute pleasure speaking to you today, all the way over from New York. Have you got any final things that you'd love to say on the pod?
Well, thanks for having me, for sure. I would say, it's been really exciting talking about just leadership and the future of experiential. My biggest kind of takeaway from my journey so far has just been follow your gut, lead with empathy, read everything you can get your hands on, ask questions, answer emails from people who want to do podcasts with you, and take the leap.
Great. Like grab the opportunity. I love it.
Just do it. Even if it makes you a little scared, just do it.
Amazing, Vanessa. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in and making the choice to listen to this podcast. If you liked what you've heard today, please don't forget to subscribe.